Hello everyone, this is Jeff with Walk and Talk with Warden Jeff. I want to tell you a story this morning about a riot in a minimum security prison that I was involved in, and I wasn't even working there. I was working at the time at a high-medium facility, and at that time on my shift I was a lieutenant on the second shift, and I was the next in line and be in charge of the tactical unit. I was on the TAC team. TAC team is a response team when there's trouble within the facility or outside the facility. You assemble your team together and you go take care of business, whatever it happens to be. Well, this particular case was we got a phone call from this minimum security prison, said we need your tactical unit over here right now. Well, they don't ever have any trouble like that in a minimum security, so it was really strange. So we didn't know, they had a thing they called systems checks back then, where they would mimic a riot or mimic an escape, see how fast your TAC team could get there and things like that. Didn't sound like that on the phone. The captain called me and told me that he don't think it's a systems check, he thinks it's the real deal. I said, okay. So I got my guys together and we got in a tactical room very fast, got everybody relieved from their post and got people called in and was getting dressed down to, to our tactical gear. We went up to got in the gatehouse. We assembled up there at the gatehouse and got another call from their TAC commander, who wasn't the actual TAC commander over at the minimum security place. He said that, bring a shotgun squad. My goodness. Bringing a shotgun squad means that there's weapons involved, because you never bring a knife to a knife fight. You always bring a gun to a knife fight. So you wanted to make sure that you always have the overwhelming power of a weapon. So we all went back and all of us checked out a shotgun out of the armory. Got all assembled out there in a big van, and there was 12 of us. We all rolled into this minimum security prison. And first of all, let me lay this minimum security prison out for you. This prison was like a college campus. It had dormitories, basically, not cells. All their rooms were, the inmate had their own key. They let themselves in and out at will. They didn't have bathrooms or any facilities like that in their cell. They had a huge area there where there were showers and bathrooms that they all used. So it was college dorm style. The outside was pretty. They had a horticulture department there. The inmates learned how to plant flowers and things like that. Well, they had the place prettied up. They had flowers and they had split rail fence everywhere around these flowers, like in a little square around the flowers, or maybe a half a square around the flowers, just to make things look good. And they did. The place looked gorgeous. It was a good looking facility for a prison. You'd be proud, to have done time there if you needed to do time. But anyway, we get in the van and we get up to their gatehouse, and of course they waved us right straight through. We pulled around the corner where you could see the prison probably about, I don't know, a quarter mile away. All you could see was people, and they were fighting. There was people with that split rail fence that I was telling you about. They had taken apart, and they were swinging this split rail fence. These 8 feet long pieces of split rail fence that they were running at people and jousting other inmates, hitting other inmates with split rail fence. It was probably the worst thing that I've ever seen as far as inmates fighting. I mean, they were fighting for real. It was a full-fledged riot. Well, we assembled about a quarter of a mile, maybe an eighth of a mile from them. You just don't want to get in the middle of them and assemble. So I had everybody stop right about an eighth of a mile on the road. And we all jumped out of the van, secured the van. We all got in our line across, 12 of us in a straight line across, and walked down the road, and we was doing what you call a full step. You have a half step and you have a full step. A full step is trying to get to where you're going to go. A half step is whenever you get there, you take the half step, like left and then a left and then a left, and you take a half step just to ease into the situation, to try to quell the inmates, because a lot of times if they see the force, they will stop. Well, we got assembled. We did our full step all the way up into there. closer we got, the more stuff we saw. It was just unbelievable. People fist fighting, people using weapons. But like I said, there wasn't a piece of split rail fence nowhere in that facility that wasn't where it was supposed to be, or was being used as a weapon, basically. And there was people laying on the ground where they had been knocked out with a split rail fence. Well, the closer that we got, all of a sudden, this car comes screaming up behind us, slammed on the brakes, and the guy jumps out of the car and says, "What are you guys doing?" And I stopped, and I turned around and I looked, and it was their tactical commander. He was off work that night, but he'd been called in. By rights, it is his facility, and it is his job or his responsibility to make sure everything's okay as far as what we use in the operation of the tactical unit. He said, "Why do you guys have shotguns?" I said, "Your guy called us and told us to bring shotguns." He said, "Put those guns away. We do not need guns." These guys are swinging 8-foot pieces of split rail fence at each other, and he wants us to get a billy club that's 3 feet long to protect ourselves. And I told him that. I said, "Are you looking around, man?" I said, "They're using pieces of wood for weapons." He said, "We don't need shotguns. This is a minimum security." I said, "Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like it's minimum security." So we kind of got into a little, I won't say an argument. We got into a disagreement. I'll tell you that. I said, "Well, it's your facility." And so all of a sudden, his guys come out of the building there, all dressed up in their tactical gear. There was like 15 of them. So there was 12 of us and 15 of them. 50 or 60 of the inmates. So we get in that straight line across. He said, okay, yeah, I see what you mean." He said, "The 2 in guys use shotguns." So he didn't want the full squad having shotguns. He only wanted the in guys to have shotguns. So we gave the shotguns to 2 in guys, and we walked in 2 separate groups. So we had 4 shotguns out there. We had 2 separate groups because we had really like 3 or 4 areas that the inmates were still fighting. My particular group that we went right down the middle of kind of where they were. And these guys, like I had said, they were swinging these fences at each other. I saw this guy hit this other guy in the face with a split rail fence with a full baseball swing. 8-foot piece of split rail. Dropped that guy like a towel. The guy fell on the ground, and we were doing our half step towards him, shouting orders to tell him to get back to the cell house, because that's really all we wanted to do, is wanted to get him under control, to get him back to the cell house, and then we'd sort things out later. We had video cameras out then, trying to video what all was going on. And so we knew we could identify these guys later on. But the first things first, let's get them secured in a cell. Well, the problem is with minimum security at this place, there was no securing them in a cell. You could secure them in the wing, and there was 48 inmates in every wing. The problem was we didn't know who was who. We didn't know, who the gang chiefs were. We didn't know who the bangers were anywhere, and that's what it was. It was definitely a huge gang fight, and never did really find out what it was over, other than the fact that one of the gangs owed the other gang quite a bit of money from the street, not here, from the street, and they took it out on these guys inside the prison. So anyway, we did all this tactical operation to just to get these guys put in their wings, get the doors locked. Well, by this time we got a lot of extra security that's coming in. So the first thing we did after we finally got everybody secured in their wings, we wasn't sure what we had. We didn't know if the people had escaped, because one thing I've maybe failed to mention in this minimum security prison, there's no fence around it. This place was fenceless. You could walk out of that prison anytime that you felt froggy. You could just go wherever you wanted to go, and no fences at all, no gates, no locks, just the cell blocks. Like I said, had locks to lock the wings, where you lock them in the wings. So we get all these guys finally corralled and in units. We don't know if we've got them in the right units or not. We've just got them in units. We've got them secured. So the whole rest of the night, we were there for probably 7 or 8 hours. The whole rest of the night, we spent going to cell house to find out who was supposed to be in what cell, and all that, to get back to the guy who got hit in the face with a split rail fence. This guy fell, like I said, like a towel. I thought, well, when we get there, this guy's going to be knocked out, possibly even passed on, because this was a shot. I mean, it was a shot. You could hear it. You could hear his head thump behind that wood piece. But when we got up there, this guy was gone. I thought there is absolutely no way. There is no way that this guy made that, got up after that shot to the head. Well, what had happened was he had fallen. Several of his buddies picked him up and drug him basically to the cell house. Which, now back to the current part of the story, I was going through one of the cell houses, and we was going room to room, and we found the guy. He had a knot on his head, on his forehead, that looked like a softball, and he had been bleeding pretty bad. His sheet and everything was completely bloody. So we knew that he was one of them that was involved for sure. We got him to the healthcare as soon as we could, and I think they actually took him out to an outside hospital. So we went to every cell. We got everybody situated, everybody put in their rooms, but that wasn't actually the case. Because what had happened was, these guys all decided that we are not going to go to our regular cells. We're going to go to our gang cells, you know. So they all went to different cells. They went over there to, I guess, to make sure that they had plenty of people in case the fight broke out again. So we was having to move guys all around. Like I said, we was there for 8 hours. We were 2 short on the count. 2 people short. Oh no. Now they're thinking we've got somebody who has definitely escaped. Well, that is always a bad deal. And so what happened is these 2 guys, we looked for them everywhere. The first thing you do is you look inside the facility to see if you can find them inside the facility first. We looked everywhere. We couldn't find these guys. It's like, oh my goodness, these guys are gone for sure. Well, one of the officers said, hey, he said, count last count. He said, we had 2 guys down in the laundry because we was behind in laundry, and these guys was basically working overtime down there to get caught up. So we walked down there to the laundry, to me and a couple other guys. There they are. They're down there doing laundry. They was away from the facility quite a bit. They was quite a ways away. We walked in there in our tactical gear, and they looked like they had seen a ghost. They dropped all the stuff out of their hands and put their hands up. I said, take it easy, man. You're all right. I said, how long you guys been here? He said, oh man, almost 12 hours now. He said, we got back from chow. He said, we just went ahead and just started working again. And the officer knew that they were in there and hadn't thought of that for a long time, you know. I guess all the excitement. But anyway, we found those 2 guys, and we got everybody sorted through and everybody sorted out. So in a minimum security prison, we had a major fight and a major gang fight and a major riot. And they shipped out hundreds of inmates left to minimum security back to max, which that is quite a deduction in a grade whenever you go from a minimum to a max joint. And these guys blew it, you know, with this great big fight. I think there was like 20 or 30 serious injuries, and then there was 50, 60, 70 maybe even just injuries where guys were, you know, cuts and bruises and scrapes from where they were fighting. But anyway, you got to remember, just because it's minimum security does not mean that something can't bust loose in a heartbeat. And as far as me and the tactical commander over on the other side, when we got finished, we had a long talk. Him and I were the same rank. We were both lieutenants. He was lieutenant at the minimum. I was lieutenant at the high medium. And we had a long talk when that was over with. And I told him to never ever come up there and overrule me on an order that I gave my men in front of everybody. Come over there and talk to me and tell me that, you know, hey, let's not do this, let's do this, and let's talk it out. He actually understood it. He said, you know, he said, I was wrong. He said, no, I apologize for that. He said, I shouldn't have done that. He said, that was unprofessional. So we were still good. I mean, I never really knew that guy all that good anyway. But we never had any problems in the future as far as, you know, tactical situations or anything like that. But anyway, minimum security, it popped off in a hurry and got very, very serious. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my story, and I hope everyone has a great day. And please like, subscribe, and comment on my page. I'm out.